In here, we recognize the Minister of Responsibility for Sports, Honorable Greta Roberts, the Minister of State in the Ministry of Sports, Honorable Oscar George, Honorable Dr. Irvin McIntyre, and other members of government, of cabinet, the cabinet secretary. This morning, our press conference is focused on sports. And without further ado, I welcome the Minister with Responsibility for Sports, the Minister of State, Honorable Oscar George, to address you.
Thank you very much. Good morning to all of you and the listening public. I want to acknowledge my colleague Minister, Honorable Roberts, Dr. McIntyre, our Minister of Finance, the Cabinet Secretary, the media, listening public. Good morning to all of you, and thank you for being here to receive some updates on what is happening in the Ministry of Sports. I first want to wish our national football team well today as they take on the BVI in the World Cup qualifiers at the Windsor Park Stadium at 3 p.m. Based on our interactions, the team is in good spirit and confident ahead of this important fixture. So I wish them all the best as they represent Dominica this afternoon. Additionally, I want to put on record our commendations to Mr. Glenson Prince. Glenson has been an exceptional player for Dominica and has represented our country for approximately 2 decades, during which time he has held the captaincy on various occasions. Today, he will be playing in his final home match in front of his home crowd. So we wish him all the very best in his final home game and thank him for his service to football and service to the country over the years. I want to also express our delight for the group of young sports officers at the Division of Sports who were elevated to permanent establishment effective June 1st. If you recall, the Honorable Prime Minister met with a number of non-established employees last month, and one of the success stories from that engagement is that these officers, who were all very diligent officers, would transition from non-established positions into established or permanent positions. Obviously, now that they are in this new permanent position, they will qualify to receive the associated benefits as well as job security. So I'm happy for our youth sports officers who are now established and continue to groom the next generation of young athletes in the schools and in the various communities across Dominica. Congratulations to them all. As we all know, the ministry responsible for sports has been undertaking a number of initiatives to strengthen and grow both community sports and sports at the national level. And as I have always indicated, in order to achieve sustained benefits from sports at the national, regional, and international levels, preparations must start at the grassroots level at a young age when the interest is high among the young people. In our various engagements last year, the issue of lighting was regularly highlighted. I'm pleased to report that the first round of lighting upgrades to community playing fields is complete. Under this phase, lighting solutions were installed on 8 community playing fields, including the Maho, the teaser grounds in Maho, the Grand Fond playing field, the Soufriere playing field, the Anzime playing field, the Vekas playing field, Center playing field in Granby, Granville playing field, and the Bellevue Chopin playing field. The scope of works included the construction of the concrete bases, trenching to allow for underground cables, which is consistent with our resilience agenda, the erection of 45-foot metal poles on the concrete bases, and the installation of LED lights to the individual poles. This broad initiative costed $1.4 million. It is our hope that the youth, women, and even senior citizens make optimum use of these lighting interventions for leagues, tournaments, and general outdoor recreation. As we speak, assessments are currently underway to identify additional community playing fields that may warrant lighting upgrades. As it relates to the restoration of the lighting at the Windsor Park Stadium, following unavoidable delays due to prolonged negotiations, government has finalized an agreement valued at $13.8 million to advance this very important national project. And I want to really thank the Honorable Prime Minister for his leadership in this process, and most importantly for seeing it fit to invest such large sums in sports at this time. This is very commendable, and I want to thank him for this. So this project will be funded for the National Lotteries Commission and will be executed by Praba International Inc., a reputable sports lighting company based in Canada. An initial mobilization payment of $1 million has already been paid to the contractor and will include payments for the procurement of anchor bolts, rebars, foundational works, and the commencement of shipping. This critical upgrade will be far superior to the previous lighting system that existed at the Windsor Park. It includes the installation of high-quality lighting systems consistent with ICC specifications, a modern control room, backup generators, and supporting facilities. A technical committee has been put in place to oversee the implementation of this important project, and regular updates will be provided to the media. This $13.8 million investment underscores government's commitment to maintaining Dominica's premier sporting venue, even amidst other national priorities. So in the coming weeks, we will start to see movement taking place at the Windsor Park. We expect the first set of containers to arrive mid-month, June, and we expect towards the end of the month in June that works on the foundation for the poles will commence, and of course, barring any uncertain circumstances. The ministry is also advancing key sporting facilities implemented under the Basic Need Trust Fund Project Cycle 10, and Minister Roberts has been pushing this, so I think I need to highlight some of these again. One such project is the complete upgrade of the Trafalgar basketball court, which is advancing very well as we speak. As we know, Trafalgar is known as one of the most prominent communities when it comes to basketball. And I believe that this upgrade will certainly create better opportunities for the youth in that area. This upgrade includes a media center, covered seating, washrooms, change rooms, new markings, uprights, and perimeter fencing. This project is to the tune of $920,000. Another sporting project currently being implemented under the BNTF Cycle 10 is the upgrade to the Dillis playing field, to include the construction of a small pavilion, change room, and the grassing of the playing surface. Again, this is progressing well and is at a tune of $870,000. Another popular venue in the southeast is the Castle Bruce playing field. The thinking of the ministry is to implement a project for the total upgrade of the Castle Bruce playing field under the next cycle of BNTF, that's BNTF 11. A matter of fact, the officials from CDB were in Dominica last month and visited the playing field along with the Member of Parliament, Village Council, and some residents to get a better understanding and appreciation of the scopes of works needed. The intention under this project is to get Castle Bruce to a level of a regional playing field, to include leveling, retaining structures, drainage, construction of a proper pavilion, and washroom facilities. Once finalized, this will be a great addition to the Southeast because, as we all know, the Southeast has been producing excellent athletes and sporting teams over the years. So the ministry, through the BNTF office, will continue the engagement with the CDB on this, and I want to just commend the manager and staff of the BNTF for the diligence so far in this process. As I'm on the Southeast, the ministry recently commissioned the state-of-the-art hard court in La Plaine. Again, this is part of our government's effort to strengthen grassroots sports by creating an avenue to facilitate local sports participation by our young people. This court includes top-quality lighting, and our hope is that the people of La Plaine make the best use of this facility to develop and nurture the next generation of our athletes. A multi-purpose hard court was also recently developed at the Benjamin's Park in Portsmouth. The outstanding actions are the installation of the bleachers and installation of the lighting fixtures, and the procurement process for these items have begun. In the meantime, we have allowed use of that facility as we wait on the arrival of these items. A similar facility has been built in the community of Penville, creating an additional avenue for young men and primary school students to play. And if you know Penville, you know Penville is not no means flat. So it took a great effort by the PAREP and the villagers to identify a location suitable for such a facility. And I think we have identified the best facility in the village for this facility. And so far, everyone in this village is very happy for this facility. It's a great addition to our sports and youth in the community of Penville. The Ministry of Sports is also considering the development of synthetic mini football pitches at a few locations around Dominica, and that is in partnership with the Dominica Football Association. I believe that these mini pitches will be a great addition to our sports, since small goal football is really growing in popularity across Dominica. So we are still conducting assessments as to the best areas for installation of these turfs, and once both parties can agree on these locations, we will communicate that and seek to implement. And this is something that we are looking forward to. As it relates to the ongoing works at the grammar school, an outdoor basketball court and a football field will be developed on the premises of the grammar school. These facilities will serve the Roseau Central area and offer more options to athletes in and around the city. So the focus now, as it relates to that, is to advance the actual works on the school structures and facilities for student use. And following this, when the site is cleared, we will pursue the development of the playing facilities in the area. So clearly, this government is really investing a lot of resources in sports, particularly creating an avenue for the next generation of our athletes to play. And if you are to sum up all the investments I recall in terms of the lighting, the investments on the BNTF, the hard courts, the football field, the mini fields, you will notice that over $18 million is now being invested in sports as we speak. And I think that is something significant for us. And in the interest of time, I won't dive into school sports, which is another large area of the Ministry of Sports. I think at the next press briefing, our sports coordinator can highlight these interventions. And of course, the opportunities we seek for athletes overseas. We can highlight these things in another press briefing. I also would like to give an update on the National Sports Council, which I believe is an important creature in our overall sports advancement. The National Sports Council was instituted last year and primarily serves as a policy advisory body to government on all matters pertaining to sports development. The council has been mandated in its early stages to lead in the review of the existing sports laws and then to make recommendations for improvement to get it fit for purpose in this modern era. To move the process forward, we engaged a legal drafter in Mr. Anthony Laron to guide the process forward. And I was advised that the council has been meeting regularly and the review process is still ongoing as it relates to this National Sports Act or Sports Bill. Following from this, the council is expected to finalize a comprehensive national sports policy which will dive into more detail on a number of key areas as it relates to sports participation and sports administration, as well as ensuring that our programs are aligned with regional and international best practices. So I wanted to clarify that because we have been getting feedback on this in terms of the real function of the Sports Council. The Sports Council is an advisory body with regards to policy matters of sports. And of course, we are confident that with the capacity of the membership of the Sports Council, we expect them to play a very central role in guiding Dominica's sporting revolution over the next decade or so. And finally, I would like to give a brief update on our efforts to construct a synthetic track facility in Dominica. which I believe is one of the few, if not the only missing pieces in our sports development to date. The ministry continues to work with or alongside our partners, the Dominica Amateur Athletics Association under the leadership of Mr. Brendan Williams, World Athletics, and the Quarter Development Fund. Through the efforts of the President of Athletics, we started our engagement with World Athletics in 2023 with an application for a new Class 1 athletics track. Our responsibility in this process was to identify a suitable land space for the laying of the track and to get the site into an suitable condition by way of clearing and leveling. We have settled on the site at Point Wrong, which has been subjected to various soil tests and have been accepted. The clearing of the site will commence next week, and we expect a consultant from World Athletics to visit Dominica to finalize the actual implementation of this very important project. So I will end here for today, and of course, I look forward to all your questions in good spirit. Thank you very much.
Thanks to the Honorable Minister. This is what we mean when we say there's so much going on across sectors, including the Ministry of Sports, and we simply need to bring it to the attention of the public and talk about it a little bit more. And that's exactly what we're doing with these press conferences. So at this point, I'd like to open the floor for questions. And we'll start with Alian Christopher from Vibes Radio.
To everybody, like Dion said, Alian Christopher, Vibes Radio. I'm not new, so I've been around. Mr. Minister, first question would be on the Point Wrong facility. You mentioned a level 1. Can you clarify as to what you mean by level 1? Will it be built to, Olympic standards and a facility that can host like Carifta Games and so on?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yes, as you rightly said, the level 1 will be to Olympic specifications. And our intention, way back then when we started our discussions with World Athletics, is to be in a position to host Carifta in 2028. So that's what we're working with. We have a goal of hosting Carifta, because every year we send many athletes to Carifta in various countries, and we need to be in a position where we can host it. So just to say that the track, level 1 means that it will fit World Athletics specifications. Thank you.
Is there expected condition before that facility? Do we say where it's going to be phases and so on?
Yeah. As I said earlier, the initial action is to have the site cleared and leveled. And when that is done, we expect a consultant from World Athletics to visit Dominica to meet with all stakeholders, to walk the site, to give us some last advice in terms of specifications, in terms of height, above road level, etc. And from that engagement, we expect to finalize the implementation plan so we can be in a position to inform better as to the start time and end time. So we expect that consultant in Dominica this month, June. So I anticipate that by the end of June, we'll be in a position to give you a specific end time for the project. Thank you.
Kyrie FM. Mr. Minister, I may have missed it, but can you update us further on the lighting of the stadium, like the deadline for lighting of the stadium?
Well, based on our discussions with the contractor, given the volume of works required, because, just to say that each pole will be put in 4 poles, 150 feet tall. Each pole will accommodate 75 lights. So in all, we will have 300 lights. Obviously, it will be far superior than what existed before, because what existed before, it was not built for cricket. It was just a general lighting of a sporting facility. So this thing, and that's why it's so expensive, $13.8 million. And that's consistent with the amount being spent in other countries for similar projects. So it's a huge project. The contractor has indicated 4 to 6 months. We had a committee meet with the contractor on Thursday, with a number of stakeholders. And what they're saying is that we have requested a breakdown of the activities of the project with the view of condensing some of the activities, because we're trying to achieve it in 4 months. The contractor is saying 6. We have given ourselves 4 months. So we're looking at this timetable and trying to see where we can condense certain activities to get us in a position to deliver in 4 months' time, by September, October latest. So that's what we're working with for now. Obviously, we're in the hurricane season, so we never know what can happen. There may be activities at the stadium that may cause delays, but we're trying to limit any delays. You know, the Dominican public have been asking for that project for a long time, and I don't think we're in a position to delay by 2 hours, far less for 2 months. So we're going right ahead and implement.
George, good morning to you. Curtis Matthew from DBS Radio. My first question has to do with, of course, the lighting of Windsor Park Stadium. Can you point to employment opportunities for Dominicans during the lighting of Windsor Park? And in relation to this lighting for Windsor Park, a previous contract was signed just about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. Was there a need for the government to recover funds from that previous contract? So I will stay with these 2 questions for now, and I will be back in a while.
You know, sometimes I feel like it should be at the Ministry of Sports. You're very passionate. But in terms of your first question, employment opportunities, yes. From our discussions, jobs will be created for 70 to 80 individuals during the lifetime of this project, mainly electricians and masons. I was also advised that there will be a lot of concrete required for the project, because we go in a bit further down with the foundation and a bit wider. So we expect about 80 to 100 trucks of concrete to be used during the lifetime of this project. So again, that will be employment and activity for concrete suppliers. What I have indicated to the contractor is that we should give some students from the Dominica State College an opportunity to learn from the experience of the project. So we'll be having some arranged visits with some students to see firsthand in terms of the electrical aspect of the project, and we can pass on some knowledge in the entire process. So yes, a lot of employment opportunities will be created, and very soon we will seek to engage these people, or facilitate the contractor to engage these people. Yeah. In terms of the other question, in terms of if government was able to recover the funds, the short answer is no. If you recall, the initial contract about 2 years ago, it was really a first phase. It included all the groundwork in terms of the surveys, the assessments, taking down the old towers, doing some initial underground works in terms of the cables. So it wasn't a complete contract to have the poles up. But just to say that the current contractor will build on what was done by the previous contractor. He has indicated that. We have visited the site, and that's the intention, to build on what was done. So the short answer is no. There will be no need to recover any funds. And I can say further that if the initial contract was not done, maybe the current contract will be at a higher price. So the answer is no. Thank you.
Right. So in other words, there was no money disbursed to the previous contractor.
Yeah, there was money disbursed.
Yeah.
There was money disbursed. Yeah, but what I'm saying is there's no need to recover. Yeah.
Still a little confused, but I'm sure that is a matter we will deal with a little later on. But on to another question, Senator George. The National Sports Council, as you said, that council has been put in place. And some people have said previously that they have not really felt the National Sports Council. So I've heard that concern out there. But the question is, in terms of time off for national players in Dominica, will that be a mandate of the National Sports Council to ensure that national players who represent Dominica abroad will be catered for?
Yeah, as it relates to the council, as I said earlier, the initial mandate is to review the Sports Act. And without a proper new Sports Act, the council may not be able to exercise its mandate properly. So they are all engaged with that at this time, and they have been meeting with the intention to review the act. They have sent some recommendations, which we sent back from the ministry standpoint for some further clarification, but they are working on that, and I can assure you I've been at them to supply that. So as it relates to time off, that is part of the sports policy. Time off, insurance for athletes, recognizing athletes, because you don't want a case where, you know, somebody receives a gold medal or a silver medal, and there's nothing set in black and white as to what the country can give that person. So we want to have a policy where we can say clearly that if you get this, you get that. If you get this, you get that. So that will be part of the comprehensive sports policy. And it will include other stuff, sports broadcasting, a number of areas where we think that's important to improve. How does the mandate of sporting associations, you know, all these things will be captured in the sports policy. There is a draft which is with the council, but initially we want them to focus on getting this draft bill done, sent to us, go to cabinet, get approval, go to parliament and passed, and then you will feel their presence a bit more once we get to that stage. I can assure you that.
Mr. George, again, Windsor Park Stadium and lighting. For those who are concerned that because of the limitation of Windsor Park so far, we've not really seen international matches per se, can you assure the Dominican public that with lighting for Windsor Park, one will see many more international matches, West Indies and so on, playing in Dominica as soon as the lights are installed? Or in fact, do you have plans in place for international matches for Dominica very soon? That's cricket matches, of course.
Well, first and foremost, I don't think we should give the impression that because there's no lights, they can't have cricket. We can have day cricket. And I have been upset with some people who tend to allow games to slide, because we can have games in the day. We can have one internationals. We can have test matches. But we haven't been able to get that. I wouldn't get into that. But it's something we can do. But I agree with you. The lights is important because many people prefer night games 2020. That's how the world is going. And just to see that Cricket West Indies wrote to the Ministry of Sports indicating their schedule for next year, I think for January, February, March, the first quarter. And then that's what we're working with. And that is why we are so busy trying to get these lights done as soon as possible, because we want to ensure that come first quarter of next year, we'll be in a position to have some night games. And as I said earlier, I don't think we should allow any other delays in implementing this project as we speak, because we have a tight schedule. I think New Zealand will be touring the Caribbean early next year, and we're working towards that. Thank you.
On the National Sports Council for a little while, I know you mentioned that there will be, stuff like time off for players, but we also have to take into consideration that there are, journalists who travel with those teams. Will there be anything put in place in the Sports Council for journalists who travel with the national teams? First and foremost.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I mean, it's something that we can consider for inclusion. Obviously, the council will have to deliberate on it. We have to set the parameters for that. Because sometimes the sporting associations, they contact the journalists directly, yeah? Not necessarily the government or the ministry or even the Olympic Committee. So I think it's important to have clear parameters as to, yes, journalists can get time off to do this, but set the parameters clear and have a common understanding going forward. So it's something we can communicate to the Sports Council for inclusion in the discussion. The sports coordinator is here, so I'm sure he's taking notes on these things.
Regarding Glenson Prince, though, who will be playing his final, last home game today, has the ministry, held any discussions with Mr. Prince, regarding a coaching role, mentorship, or youth development. Also, can the Ministry of Sports confirm whether, Prince will be offered an ambassadorial or advisory role within the football program? Thank you.
Well, the truth is we haven't had any discussions with Glenson Prince. I have committed to the Football Association that I should be at the game this afternoon. So I'm looking forward to meeting Glenson. Glenson originally is from Portsmouth. In my days at the Portsmouth Secondary School, I had interactions with Glenson, so I know quite a bit about Glenson. But again, we'll see how it goes. We'll have some discussions this afternoon. And in terms of ambassadorship, I don't think, well, that hasn't been discussed. But it's something for consideration. I take your point. Yeah.
Good morning. My sport actually is fishing. Yeah. My sport is fishing, pêcher. I think it's an important sport for development of your ecotourism, in inviting international anglers to Dominica and bringing more monies to our coffers, right? But you mentioned that a number of officers, sport officers, are now permanent. How many of them and what areas have they been assigned to? Can you tell us, please?
Yeah, well, I believe Trevor, 9 or 10, 9 sports officers positions have been created. In terms of the specific responsibilities, they are attached to different districts, I believe, and different schools, and support the sports officers there. So I believe they do a lot of stuff. They're not restricted to one task, based on what I know. I stand corrected by the sports coordinator. But again, I'm happy for them. And of course, what I think we should do more in sports is to focus a lot more on community sports. Because yes, it's always good to shine nationally, regionally, internationally, but if you want to have athletes coming up to replace the current ones that are there, the only way you're going to achieve that is in the primary school. And that's why we invest so much money through the sports division in primary school. And to be fair, sometimes I get a sense that certain people, they tend to not want to allow their children to partake in school sports, and they find excuses. Back then we had no excuses. We played sports 24/7, even more than school. But now you tend to get a lot of excuses for persons not going into sports at a young age. And even when they get to adolescence, they tend to gravitate away from sports. And that's another area we have to pay attention to. What happens after they leave the secondary school? So again, school sports is important, and of course we must be happy for our sports officers for doing that, because they do a lot of work. They travel all over the place and stuff like that. If you could appoint all of them, it's great. But for now, 9 is adequate and sufficient for now. And you say you do fishing as a sport? Where do you fish? All around, okay. Go ahead.
All right, Mr. Minister, based on the facilities, rehabilitated around the island in terms of lighting in different communities, is there a plan in place, for maintenance of those facilities, whether grass cutting or maintenance of the light? Also, we have the, what do they call it again, the T10, sorry. Dream 11 T10 will be coming up. Number of cricketers, staff, members from all about will be participating. Your thoughts on the Dream 11 that will be coming up, and yeah.
Yeah. As it relates to the maintenance plan, what we did last year, even before we started the process of putting lights, we went to the communities along with the village councils, the PAREPs, sporting clubs and groups, and then we explained to them, yes, we can put lights, but you have to play your part. And what we have done deliberately this time around is that we have installed the lights. Most of them cost in the region of $200,000. But in terms of the power supply, we have done it pay as you go. So that way we get them responsible or playing their part in or ownership, building ownership of the project. It was deliberate, and I think it works better like that, so that they can contribute to the project. And of course, we continue to have discussions with the village council because all the lighting we developed, it's on the name of the village council. So we have the village council as really a police in terms of monitoring and maintenance of the light. Obviously, we will play our part for sports division. We have mowers at the sports division, which we continue to use to ensure the grass is cut on certain fields. But the community and the young people have to play a role in building ownership of these facilities, and that's what we're trying to advocate under this project. T10, Dream 11, that's a very important cricket product, not just for Dominica, because it's played in many countries around the Caribbean. It gives the young people an opportunity to showcase their skills. It's short cricket, entertaining cricket, and I think we're in our 7th edition. So it's very successful, and I think it's growing in popularity. And I want to commend DCA for the work that they continue to do. The only thing I would say is that from the meeting we had last week, the entire committee was of the view that because of the lighting project, that the need has arisen to reconsider hosting the event at the Windsor Park, because there was a planned event on July 13th, I believe. And the contractor has indicated that mid-June is going to be a lot of movement at the Windsor Park. So we continue to engage the DCA on that. I suspect they may need to consider hosting it in Portsmouth this year. Because, as you know, Portsmouth is a first-class venue. Portsmouth, Bangladesh played cricket in Portsmouth. It's a good facility. There are stands, there are washrooms. So it's something for consideration in Portsmouth, but it might be very difficult, both from a safety standpoint and from an operationalization standpoint, to have Dream 11 in July at the Windsor Park, because the contractor indicated that a lot of works will be done, a lot of equipment will be on the playing surface, and they will be far inside the boundary ropes, which will make it very difficult to have cricket. So it's something we're going to engage DCA on. I know that the manager met with them last week. So we'll continue engagement on that and see how it goes. But I would love cricket to be in Portsmouth, closer to home, so that enough people can enjoy some Dream 11 in an open setting. And I'm sure that more people will come. So it's something for consideration. But we continue to engage DC on that. Yeah.
Mr. Minister, what about health insurance for our sportsmen and women? Because many times we've heard athletes saying that I got this injury and I'm left, by myself, not getting any help. What do we have in place to assist? So
that's a good question. So currently we don't have any established facility or mechanism in place for that. We normally deal with the situation on a case-by-case basis. When there's school sports and there's an injury, the sports coordinator will get the information and try to make a case for that person. But the issue is, if an athlete plays in a sporting event associated with an association, that is an area of challenge. So I believe in the new sports policy, we have to articulate that better as to how are we going to have insurance both for government sports and for association-based sports. And then we have to engage an insurance company and see who can give us a better option and stuff like that. So it's something we have as high priority in the sports policy aspect of it, and it's something we must pursue. But for now, from a government standpoint, if you partake in school sports or sports organized by the sports division, and then there's an injury, we have some sort of mechanism to facilitate you, both through government and through the Dominica Social Security. So that's where we are for now.
Can you speak to the tennis fans who are waiting the facility on High Street? I know that there was some mention of it at the last press conference, but a number of tennis fans are asking what is the latest on the facility in High Street. And you mentioned the Benjamin Park and you would like to see more cricket played there at a certain level. But Granby is also a massive playing field in Granby. Any plans to develop this playing field to standards that, matches at a certain level can be played at the Granby playing field and at the Benjamin Park in Portsmouth?
Yeah, on the issue of the tennis courts, as you may be aware, the asphalt was not placed properly on the surface. So most likely we have to get additional asphalt. That's where we are. Just to get a new coating, which will meet the specifications. Because as of now, it's very uneven and may not be suitable for this. So I cannot give you the timeline for that. We engage in public works in terms of that aspect of it, and this is led by the PIREP for the Rosa Central constituency. Granby, a lot of work has been done at Geneva. It's a wonderful playing field there. It's maybe the third largest now in Dominica in terms of the playing surface and stuff. And of course, it should be a first-class venue. My thinking for Granby should be some stands initially. There's a single facility. It's very far from the playing area. So some stands might be useful for Granby at this point. Benjamin's Park, for now, Benjamin's Park is okay. It's already categorized as a first-class venue. It can accommodate both first-class and international cricket. We had some plans initially to develop it a bit further, but that didn't happen. But for now, I think Benjamin Park should be okay. We just implemented or developed some outdoor nets. We had an indoor facility on the outskirts of the park, and then next to it, we added some outdoor cricketing nets. And again, that is very important for Benjamin's Park. So Benjamin Park is looking okay, and Granby is looking okay. The only thing in my view is that some stands may be needed in Granby to facilitate the crowd.
Dominica now has a number of players who are looking that they can make the step further to like West Indies duties. We have some Carvem, Athenes, and so on. But people like Stefan Pascal, Gilon Tyson, and the others, they are looking very good. Mr. Minister, what would you like to say to these players? I mentioned a few names, but obviously there are others who are looking really good at this time. What do you say to these players? I mean, the Tysons, Athenes, Hodge, and others. What message do you have for them and their families right now?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that there are a number of young players that are looking very good in cricket, particularly. I think for them, the key is to keep fit, keep practicing. Obviously, the only way you can get onto a team is by performance. The selectors are the ones who select, but what you can do as a player is take it into your own hands and perform, put runs on the board. For instance, Stephen Pascal. And even Alec Afanas, I was kind of disappointed that he was not selected onto the one-day squad. There are folks who indicate that he hasn't been scoring enough runs. And again, if you want to get selected, if you want to force yourself into any team, you have to score runs. So for me personally, any athlete who wants to get there in cricket, you have to take your performance into your own hands. Obviously, coaching is important. We have a very qualified and very capable coach in Sam Kernan at the Dominica Cricket Academy in Portsmouth. He has done wonders for cricket. I believe that a number of young cricketers who made it through the ranks was as a result of the efforts of Sam Kernan. He's doing a very, very good job, both for male cricketers and for female cricketers, because we have Abini Sejan, Abia Gilbert from Penville, who have made it to West Indies team under his watch. So if they have the discipline and the mindset to play and bat long, I believe that they can overcome the challenge of selection and make it onto any West Indies team at any level.
Another question, Mr. Minister, that has to do with former national players. People who have played for Dominica over the years, and these players are very experienced and they can lend some support to national players. Would you like to see more of that, more of the players who have played for Dominica over many years come back on the scene? Some people felt that there are some people who are basically left out of the scene, or maybe you don't see them come and lend their support to national players. Would you like to see a system, or can the government put a system in place where these players, I have some names I'm thinking of, I don't want to mention, but to get them on the national stage where they can come back to train and lend their support to our players?
Yeah, I agree, and I noticed this sports coordinator smiling because, you know, at the sports division we engage quite a few of those past players. I won't call their names, but they are engaged at the sports division to give back as experienced players. In terms of the associations, it's something that they can look at a little bit more closely. I know they try to engage some past players, but it's something they can improve on, getting the expertise from these past players. But we have no structure in place or mechanism to engage guys who have contributed in sports. So it's something we can also look at in our discussions, both at the council level and at the ministry level. So I agree with that point.
I've heard the Olympic president, Billy Doctrove, Dominica Olympic Committee President Doctrove, stated several times that he feels that if national teams or players out there are not ready for overseas engagements, they should not attend, they should not go. In other words, if there's a tournament abroad and a netball or a basketball team, they are not ready, it's best they stay home. What are your own views? Because that has come from the president many times.
Well, I support the president on that because the last thing you want is to invest so much resources in sending athletes out and the results is terrible. And what I've always advocated to them when they come to me is that if you don't have a local setup, you don't have a local league, you don't have any sports being played in Dominica, but you're making a case for a team to travel out of Dominica. So that's where we should start. You have to have a strong setup at the local level before you can attempt to go out of Dominica. And of course, if you're an athlete and you cannot perform in a local league, what does that say? If you cannot perform in a local league, how are you going to perform on the national stage against guys that are very competitive from other countries? So I agree with the president on that, and it's something we can look at by strengthening. But it can only be solved by strengthening the local league, investing more money in the local league, and then you can have better quality players that can go out there, and that will justify spending more money on them to send them out there to go out.
And Mr. Minister, you have said that you would like to see community sports revived. You've said that many times. I have a quote from you right here, that you'd like to see the revival of community sports. Are you satisfied now, Mr. Minister, with what we see around Dominica in terms of sports around the communities in Dominica?
Well, I'm not entirely satisfied. I think we have been doing a decent job in the past 2 years or so through sports division and through other activities. Because I recall the days when every weekend, the place would be buzzing with sporting activities in all communities, and there's economic activity, music, and everything going on. And then the intention there is when you have these small community activities, officers from sports division or associations will be present, and they can identify talented individuals to take on board and to nurture their skills and talent. So that's what we're working towards by ensuring that we can have activities all across Dominica and more persons engaged. But I am not satisfied as to where we are now. We're doing a decent job. We have visited a number of playing fields and trying to play our part in reviving. But the question is, what happens when we go? If we was at Sufuye, you were there, Sufuye 2 weeks ago. Everybody was excited, about the lights and the playing field. But then what happens after we leave? That is where the council and the sports committees and the schools and the community groups have to take it on board to maintain that momentum to bring back sports where it was. But we committed to this. We will try our best to ensure that we can bring it back to where it was as it relates to community sports. Yeah.
I will ask my final question. And I see the Minister for Finance right here, so I'll ask that question in relation to him and the upcoming budget. Will you and your Minister Roberts advocate for more money to be put into sports in the upcoming national budget 2025, 2026? And as I said before, I'm asking the question because I see the Finance Minister right here. I'm sure you don't want to disappoint him.
Well, as I said, if it was up to me, the entire budget would be in sports. But that is not possible. And particularly as we operate in a small country, we don't have critical mass. So funding will always be a challenge. And I'm happy you said that because I think we need to have a discussion on sports financing. How do we fund all these investments? The CBI has been helping us greatly, but we all know the attempts against the CBI. CBI has done in the facilities, all the funds we send students to study, to play, character, etc., CBI funds. So sports financing is something we have to discuss. But going forward, in the national budget, I cannot preempt the Minister of Finance, but we continue to advocate for certain initiatives for sports. I think this year we have done well as it relates to infrastructure. I think next year we should focus more on the softer side of sports. That's my personal take. But we have some more discussions on that at the cabinet level.
I'm aware of that the chair of the National Anti-Doping Organization for Dominica, will be attending the Caribbean Radio AGM sometime this week in Barbados, and to understand the critical role that the organization plays in terms of education, doping, etc. What support does the government provide, the National Anti-Doping Organization for Dominica to the, like fees, and all the operations? Are there any support from the Dominica government to the National Anti-Doping Organization?
Yeah. Well, we pay our annual subscription to RADO, and RADO is the regional anti-doping organization which Dominica falls under. So we pay our annual subscription to RADO, and I'm aware of the AGM on the 8th of June. Ms. Kalita Benjamin will be our representative at that meeting. And as I said a few weeks ago, I don't think the population and our athletes in particular are well informed on anti-doping. It's something that the Dominican public don't know much about. But it's something that's important, something that can happen at any time. And as an athlete, especially those who represent us in overseas competition, we have to poke the consciousness on this issue. So we will try to implement an awareness campaign on that on the return of Ms. Benjamin from the AGM. Once she can provide a report as to what was discussed, we will put a plan in place as to going around and meeting the clubs, meeting the associations, and just informing them on the need for staying compliant with World Anti-Doping Code. So it's something we work on going forward.
That was excellent indeed. Thank you for this spontaneous applause. We're capping it off at just about an hour, which is good timing. We thank the Minister for his comprehensive, of course with the help of the media, comprehensive report, but very concise at the same time. So thank you so much, Minister. We look forward to our upcoming press conferences. We'll try to focus on education ahead of the upcoming academic year and the geothermal energy project, which is moving full speed ahead, or rather full steam ahead to December. So we will try to provide the members of the public with information on those two areas in the coming weeks, and of course, other sectors will get attention. So thank you so much for coming. I see representatives from the National Stadium, from the Athletics Association, and of course, Mr. Trevor Shillingford. Thank you for being here. Good morning, everyone. Have a great day.